What if the most dangerous knowledge ever recorded contains entities more terrifying than anything conceived by modern horror? Today, we delve deep into the demonology of ancient Abrahamic texts, uncovering the sinister beings that have haunted humanity for millennia. From soul-stealing spirits to body-possessing monsters, we'll explore how these demons have shaped religion, folklore, and our deepest fears. Stay with us until the end to discover the hidden connections between these terrifying creatures and the psychological forces that still influence our world today. If you're ready to confront the darkness, let's begin this journey into the abyss. To understand demons in Abrahamic religions, we must first examine Judaism and its concept of the Shedim, invisible creatures that lurk in darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. These beings weren't mere phantoms. Their influence manifested through sudden chills, unexplained sounds, and the terrifying sensation of being watched in the dead of night. The Talmud describes the Shedim as beings caught between angels and humans, possessing free will but lacking divine light. They reproduce, eat, and die like humans, yet remain invisible to most eyes. What makes them particularly terrifying is their intelligence. They observe human behavior, learning our weaknesses and exploiting our fears with calculated precision. Among the most feared demons stands Lilith, described in ancient texts as Adam's first wife, who after refusing submission was cast from Eden to become a hunter of souls. Medieval depictions portray her as a figure of terrible beauty, long dark hair framing a pale face, but her black eyes reflect millennia of hatred for humanity. Lilith's terror extends beyond physical danger. She represents spiritual vampirism, draining life energy from her victims while they sleep. Mothers would hang protective amulets over their children's beds, inscribed with the names of three angels, Senoi, Sansanoi, and Samangelof, who once cornered Lilith and forced her to swear she would not harm children protected by their names. Recent archaeological discoveries have uncovered Babylonian bowls from the 6th century CE, inscribed with incantations specifically designed to trap Lilith. These demon bowls were buried upside down beneath homes, creating a supernatural prison to protect families from her nocturnal visits. The terror of Lilith was so pervasive that even mentioning her name after sunset was considered dangerous, as it might attract her attention to the household. Alongside Lilith stands Asmodeus, known as the Prince of Demons, embodying the corruption of desire. Ancient texts describe him as a being with 3 heads, human, bull, and ram, his body covered in scales harder than armor. His very gaze could paralyze even the bravest souls, and his mission was always seduction and destruction, dragging victims into spiritual abyss. The Book of Tobit tells us that Asmodeus killed 7 husbands of Sarah on their wedding nights, consumed by jealous rage. This demon represents not just lust, but the destructive power of obsession and possessive love that turns sacred union into a battlefield. Medieval scholars wrote extensively about Asmodeus's ability to manipulate human emotions, turning love into hatred, friendship into betrayal, and trust into suspicion. His presence in a household could be detected through the gradual deterioration of relationships, unexplained arguments between family members, and the corruption of pure intentions into selfish desires. The Shedim, along with figures like Lilith and Asmodeus, instilled constant fear in everyday life. They weren't merely capable of affecting the minds and bodies of their victims, but were also believed to have the power to alter the very nature of reality itself. A creaking in the house, a cold draft, shadows that moved without a source. These were signs that these entities could be near, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Jewish texts describe elaborate protection rituals involving salt circles, iron nails driven into doorframes, and specific prayers recited at sunset to keep these demons at bay. The fear was so profound that entire communities would participate in protective ceremonies during times of plague or misfortune, believing that demonic influences were responsible for their suffering. With Christianity's emergence, demons transformed from chaotic spirits into fallen angels, beings who once dwelt in heaven's glory but chose rebellion over obedience. Lucifer, the light bearer, led this cosmic insurrection and suffered the most dramatic transformation. Once described as the most beautiful of all angels, Lucifer's punishment was both physical and spiritual. His radiant form twisted into something terrible. Black wings that blocked out light, eyes burning with eternal hatred, and a voice that could shake the foundations of reality. Pride became his defining characteristic and eternal weakness. The name Lucifer appears only once in the Bible, in Isaiah 14:12, originally referring to the king of Babylon. Early Christian theologians later identified this figure with Satan, creating one of history's most influential mythological conflations. This transformation from angel to demon became the template for understanding evil not as an external force, but as a corruption of good, making it far more terrifying because it suggested that even the most perfect beings could fall from grace. Christianity developed an intricate demonic hierarchy, each entity serving specific roles in the cosmic battle between good and evil. Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, appears as a grotesque figure with insect wings and a bloated, corruption-filled body. His presence brings plagues and pestilence, his breath capable of rotting entire harvests overnight. Medieval accounts describe his arrival preceded by swarms of flies so dense they darkened the sky, and his footsteps leaving behind patches of earth so poisoned that nothing would grow for 7 years. The very mention of his name was said to attract disease to the speaker, making him one of the most feared demons to invoke even for protective purposes. Leviathan represents something even more primordial, the sea serpent that embodies chaos, existing before divine order. Described as a creature of immense size, his iron-hard skin and razor-sharp teeth make him nearly invincible. More than a physical threat, Leviathan represents the anarchic forces that constantly threaten to unravel creation itself. Ancient Christian texts describe him as dwelling in the deepest parts of the ocean, his movements causing tsunamis, and his breath creating the mist that blinds sailors before they crash upon hidden rocks. Sailors would carry blessed salt and recite specific prayers when crossing deep waters, believing that Leviathan could sense their fear and rise from the depths to drag entire ships into his domain beneath the waves. Christian demonology also introduced us to Belphegor, the demon of sloth and ingenious discoveries, who was said to tempt humans with brilliant inventions that would ultimately lead to their spiritual downfall. He often appeared as a beautiful woman to seduce inventors and scholars, offering them fame and recognition in exchange for their souls. Historical accounts describe how Belphegor would whisper innovative ideas into the ears of craftsmen and philosophers, leading them to create wonders that brought them worldly success, but slowly corrupted their moral compass. The demon's particular cruelty lay in his patience. He would wait decades for his victims to realize the true cost of their bargains, by which time their souls were so thoroughly corrupted that redemption became nearly impossible. The concept of demons in Christianity became deeply tied to the fear of rebellion and the loss of divine favor. These fallen angels served as constant reminders of what could happen if one strayed from the path of righteousness. Their presence on earth posed not only physical dangers, but also embodied the constant temptation that could lead souls to eternal damnation. Medieval Christians lived in perpetual awareness of these demonic influences, seeing their hand in everything from natural disasters to personal misfortunes. This worldview created a society where every action was viewed through the lens of spiritual warfare, where demons and angels battled constantly for human souls. In Islamic tradition, demons take the unique form of jinn, spirits created from smokeless fire, capable of assuming human or animal shapes. Unlike the purely evil demons of other traditions, jinn possess free will and moral agency. Some serve Allah faithfully, while others rebel and spread corruption throughout the world. This complexity makes them perhaps more terrifying than their Christian counterparts, because their motivations cannot be easily predicted or understood. The most well-known of these rebellious spirits is Iblis, the Islamic version of Satan, who refused to bow before Adam when commanded by Allah, claiming his fiery nature made him superior to humanity's clay origin. Cast from paradise, Iblis became Shaitan, dedicating eternity to leading humans astray from the righteous path. Iblis is described as a being of pure fire who can take human form, though in his true shape he appears as a creature of immense power with burning eyes and skin that glows with eternal flame. His mission transcends simple temptation. He seeks to prove to Allah that humans are fundamentally flawed and unworthy of divine favor. Unlike other demons who might be content with individual corruption, Iblis works systematically to undermine entire civilizations, whispering doubts into the ears of leaders, promoting injustice and encouraging the kind of moral decay that destroys societies from within. Islamic scholars describe his influence as particularly subtle. Rather than dramatic possessions or obvious supernatural manifestations, he works through seemingly rational thoughts and justifications that lead people to make choices that seem logical but are spiritually destructive. The jinn remain invisible to human eyes, but their presence can be felt through inexplicable phenomena. They enter homes through cracks and shadows, and once inside can cause madness, illness, or complete possession. Unlike other demonic entities, jinn can be reasoned with, converted to Islam, or even married to humans, though such unions rarely end well for the human partner. The married represents the most powerful class of jinn, beings of immense magical ability who can grant wishes but delight in twisting the wisher's intentions. The famous story of Aladdin's genie derives from these ancient married legends, though sanitized versions rarely mention the terrible price such power demands. Islamic texts describe how married would appear to desperate individuals, offering solutions to their problems, while carefully crafting the fulfillment of wishes in ways that would ultimately destroy the wisher's life, family, and soul. The unpredictability of jinn makes them particularly terrifying in Islamic demonology. A jinn might offer wealth, power, or the fulfillment of deepest desires, but everything comes at a price that is rarely apparent until it's too late. Folktales throughout the Islamic world warn that dealing with jinn always ends badly, as their true nature is fundamentally deceptive and treacherous. They might help a poor man become wealthy, only for him to discover that his fortune came from cursed sources that would eventually destroy his family. They might grant a woman beauty that attracts a perfect husband, only for her to learn that her new spouse is actually a jinn in disguise, trapping her in a marriage that exists between the human and spirit worlds. Across all Abrahamic traditions, the power that names and seals hold over demons represents one of humanity's few defenses against these entities. Knowing a demon's true name grants power over it, as demonstrated in the Book of Tobit, when Archangel Raphael banishes Asmodeus by invoking his true name and nature. Exorcists in Christianity and Islam spend considerable effort discovering the possessing demon's identity, as banishment becomes nearly impossible without this crucial knowledge. Demons reportedly despise revealing their true names because it strips away their power and exposes them to control. This belief underlies many protective rituals. Speaking a demon's name correctly can banish it, while mispronunciation might anger it further and bring even worse consequences upon the speaker. The science of demonic names became so sophisticated that medieval scholars created elaborate taxonomies, categorizing demons by their names, powers, and the specific syllables needed to control them. These scholars risked their souls in their research, often spending years learning the pronunciation of a single demonic name, knowing that a mistake could result in their immediate destruction or eternal torment. Some names were considered so dangerous that they could only be written in special inks made from blessed materials, and the texts containing them had to be stored in consecrated containers, opened only during specific lunar phases, and read only by individuals who had undergone years of purification rituals. Demonic seals serve as both invoking and protective tools, representing some of the most dangerous knowledge ever recorded. These ancient symbols allegedly contain power, to control specific demons, with each seal requiring precise geometric construction and the pronunciation of accompanying formulas. The Ars Goetia catalogues seals for 72 demons who serve Lucifer, each requiring exact drawing techniques, specific materials, and proper timing for their creation. The slightest error in constructing a seal could result in the demon breaking, free from any attempted binding, often with fatal consequences for the would-be summoner. A hexagram surrounded by divine names was considered the ultimate protective symbol throughout the ancient world. Legend claims King Solomon used this seal to bind demons and force them to build his temple, demonstrating humanity's eternal desire to harness supernatural forces for practical purposes. Archaeological evidence suggests similar symbols appeared in protective amulets across ancient Mediterranean cultures, indicating that the fear of demonic influence was universal among early civilizations. The seal's power was believed to derive not just from its geometric form, but from the divine names inscribed around its perimeter, creating a combination of sacred geometry and holy language that demons could not overcome. Medieval grimoires describe the painstaking process of creating these seals, requiring the practitioner to fast for specific periods, gather materials during particular astrological configurations, and maintain perfect spiritual purity throughout the construction process. The materials themselves were often exotic and expensive: virgin parchment made from animals that had never mated, ink created from rare minerals blessed by religious authorities, and metals that had been purified through elaborate alchemical processes. Even with perfect construction, using these seals carried enormous risks, as they essentially opened doorways between the human and demonic realms that could not always be controlled or closed. The Book of Revelation presents some of Christianity's most terrifying demonic imagery, describing apocalyptic entities that will emerge during the end times to torment humanity. Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, commands an army of monstrous locusts designed to torture humanity without killing them, a punishment reserved for those lacking God's seal on their foreheads. These locusts possess bodies like war horses, scorpion, tails that inject unimaginable pain, human faces with women's hair, and lion-like teeth capable of tearing flesh. Their wings create a deafening roar that covers the sky in darkness, symbolizing chaos unleashed during the final days when the barriers between hell and earth finally collapse. The description of these apocalyptic locusts serves as perhaps the most detailed account of demonic creatures in Christian scripture. Unlike other biblical demons who are often described in general terms, these entities are given specific physical characteristics that create a coherent image of supernatural horror. Their human faces suggest intelligence and malevolence, while their feminine hair implies a perverse beauty that makes their monstrous nature even more disturbing. The lion's teeth represent their capacity for destruction, while the scorpion tails indicate their ability to inflict prolonged suffering. Most terrifying of all is their mission, not to kill quickly, but to torture their victims for exactly 5 months, suggesting a calculated cruelty that exceeds mere animal aggression. Revelation's beast from the sea emerges with 10 horns and 7 heads, each crowned to symbolize corrupt kingdoms under the Antichrist's rule. Its body combines various creatures, leopard, bear, and lion, as if nature itself had been corrupted to create this abomination. The beast represents demonic power fully manifest on earth, bringing devastation to human realms through both supernatural abilities and political manipulation. Modern scholars suggest these apocalyptic demons represent psychological states during civilizational collapse. The breakdown of order, the rise of mob mentality, and the emergence of destructive ideologies that consume societies from within. 3. Imagery of the beast from the sea carries particular significance because it emerges from water, the primordial element associated with chaos in ancient cosmology. Its composite nature, combining features of different predators, suggests that apocalyptic evil will not manifest as a single, identifiable threat, but as a complex system of interrelated corruptions that attack civilization from multiple directions simultaneously. The 7 heads might represent different aspects of human knowledge or governance that become corrupted, while the 10 horns could symbolize the various powers that such corruption can wield over human affairs. Demonic possession represents the ultimate violation, a demon seizing control of the human body, forcing victims to perform unimaginable acts while distorting their physical appearance. This phenomenon appears across all 3 Abrahamic traditions, suggesting a universal human fear of losing control over one's own actions and identity. Possession often begins subtly with strange movements, incoherent speech, and growing unease, but conditions rapidly escalate as bodies contort in inhuman ways, and voices emerge that clearly aren't the victim's own, speaking in unknown languages or revealing hidden knowledge they couldn't possibly possess. The possessed often exhibit eyes that become entirely black or unnaturally bright, skin that stretches and pales while bearing unexplained marks. Superhuman, strength and knowledge of hidden things that no normal human could know. They show violent aversion to sacred objects, prayers, or holy water, and speak in voices that mock religious authority while claiming dominion over the victim's soul. Medieval accounts describe possessed individuals sometimes exhibiting xenoglossy, speaking fluent languages they had never learned. Church records document cases where possessed farmers spoke perfect Latin or ancient Greek, lending credibility to supernatural explanations in an era before psychological understanding of dissociative disorders. Belial, a high-ranking Christian demon, manifests through nauseating stenches that fill entire rooms and swarms of insects that appear without natural explanation. His possessions are particularly cruel because he delights in corrupting family relationships, turning parents against children and spouses against each other through the possessed individual's actions. The Gospel of Mark describes Jesus confronting a legion of demons possessing one man. "My name is Legion, for we are many," illustrating how multiple entities can inhabit a single body, each contributing their own malevolent influence to the victim's torment. Islamic exorcisms involve reciting verses from the Quran to expel jinn that have infiltrated the human body. During these rituals, possessed individuals often scream and convulse as if their skin is burning from within. The inhuman screams, mixed with the pain and fury of the departing jinn, create a terrifying atmosphere for witnesses. Islamic scholars describe how the jinn will sometimes speak through the possessed person, bargaining for permission to remain or threatening revenge against the exorcist. These negotiations can continue for hours, with the demon attempting to wear down the exorcists, resolved through psychological manipulation and displays of supernatural knowledge. The process of exorcism across all traditions represents more than just the removal of an unwanted spiritual entity. It becomes a battle for the very essence of human identity. Demons, when confronted by religious authority, often reveal intimate details about the possessed person's life, family secrets, and hidden sins in an attempt to shame the exorcist into abandoning the ritual. They might speak in the voices of deceased relatives, claiming to be lost souls seeking help, or they might imitate religious figures to create confusion about the source of the spiritual manifestation. The psychological warfare involved in exorcism can be as dangerous as any physical threat, as demons exploit every weakness in human nature to maintain their hold over their victim. Throughout history, humans have sought power through magic, leading to dark pacts with demonic entities that promise wealth, knowledge, or supernatural abilities in exchange for something far more valuable than any material possession. The archetypal example remains the legend of Faust and his pact with Mephistopheles, the demon who appears as a gentleman in dark clothing with eyes glowing infernal red. Mephistopheles delights in deceiving the desperate, granting their immediate desires only to trap their souls in eternal servitude. Faust's story serves as the ultimate warning against trading one's soul for temporary gain. But the appeal of such bargains continues to fascinate humans because they represent the ultimate shortcut to power and success. Ancient grimoires provide detailed instructions for summoning and binding demons to the magician's will, representing some of the most dangerous knowledge ever recorded. The Ars Goetia lists 72 demons with their specific powers, from unleashing storms to granting riches, but summoning requires precise protective circles, specific incantations, and proper timing to prevent the demon from breaking free and destroying the summoner. These rituals were so dangerous that many practitioners died in the attempt, their bodies found in locked rooms with signs of supernatural violence that defied rational explanation. Paimon, one of the most powerful demons in the Gothic tradition, rides a camel and appears as a crowned man with a thunderous voice that can be heard for miles. He promises wisdom and worldly dominion to those brave enough to summon him, but his price typically involves the summoner's soul, sanity, or both. Historical accounts describe Paimon's manifestations as accompanied by the sound of invisible armies marching, creating an atmosphere of supernatural dread that could drive witnesses mad with terror. Those who successfully bound Paimon to their service often found that the knowledge he provided came with hidden costs, insights that drove them to commit terrible acts, or wisdom that revealed truths too horrible for human minds to comprehend. The Munich Manual, a 15th century grimoire, recently translated by scholars, describes rituals involving temporal demons, entities that could allegedly manipulate time itself. These beings promise to extend life, provide glimpses of the future, or allow practitioners to relive past events. But those who attempted these rituals reportedly aged rapidly or became trapped in temporal loops, experiencing the same day repeatedly until death. The concept of temporal demons represents perhaps the most sophisticated form of demonic temptation, because they offer to solve the fundamental human problem of mortality, but at the cost of trapping their victims in forms of existence that are neither fully living nor completely dead. Medieval practitioners of demonic magic developed elaborate systems of protection involving multiple layers of circles, specific combinations of sacred and profane symbols, and complex timing requirements. Based on astrological calculations, they understood that summoning demons was essentially declaring war on the natural order of creation, and that even successful rituals carried the risk of attracting unwanted attention from other supernatural entities. Many grimoires include warnings about the cascading effects of demonic summoning. Successfully binding one demon might anger its associates, leading to supernatural harassment that could continue for generations. The Necronomicon, though fictional in origin, has become a symbol of demonic magic's ultimate dangers in popular culture. H.P. Lovecraft's creation supposedly allows summoning of ancient, world-destroying entities that exist beyond human comprehension. While not historically real, the book represents humanity's fascination with forbidden knowledge and the terror of unleashing forces beyond our control. The fictional Necronomicon taps into genuine fears about the consequences of seeking knowledge that humanity is not meant to possess, suggesting that some doors should never be opened because we lack the wisdom to handle what lies beyond them. Contemporary scholars interpret demonic entities as projections of human psychological states, with each demon representing specific aspects of the human condition that we fear or struggle to control. Lilith embodies suppressed feminine power and sexual autonomy in patriarchal societies. Asmodeus represents destructive obsession and jealousy that can destroy relationships and communities. Lucifer symbolizes prideful rebellion against legitimate authority, while Belphegor manifests as creative inspiration, corrupted by ego and the desire for recognition. This psychological interpretation doesn't diminish the power of these entities in human experience. Instead, it suggests that demons represent eternal aspects of human nature that every generation must confront and overcome. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self, the repressed aspects of personality that individuals refuse to acknowledge, parallels demonic possession narratives in remarkable ways. What ancient cultures attributed to external supernatural entities, modern psychology recognizes as internal conflicts manifesting through dissociative states, multiple personality disorders, or severe mental illness. Recent neuroscientific research on temporal lobe epilepsy has revealed that seizures in this brain region can produce religious visions, out-of-body experiences, and the sensation of external entities communicating with the patient, potentially explaining many historical accounts of demonic encounters. The persistence of demonic beliefs in modern times suggests that these entities serve psychological functions that purely rational explanations cannot fulfill. Sleep paralysis episodes often feature shadowy figures resembling traditional demons, while poltergeist phenomena mirror ancient accounts of household spirits. Mass hysteria events sometimes involve perceived demonic influences, and internet communities regularly share alleged photographs and videos of supernatural encounters. The Slender Man phenomenon demonstrates how modern technology can create new mythological entities that function similarly to traditional demons, spreading through digital infection, influencing behavior, and inspiring real-world violence. Even in our scientific age, people continue to report encounters with demonic entities, suggesting that these experiences fulfill deep psychological needs or represent aspects of human consciousness that we don't fully understand. Urban legends about demons adapt to contemporary concerns. Instead of possessing individuals through traditional means, modern demons might influence people through technology, social media, or electronics or devices. These updated demonic narratives reflect current anxieties about loss of privacy, technological dependence, and the ways that digital connectivity can be exploited by malicious forces. The study of demonology reveals that these entities have always served as externalized representations of internal human struggles. Whether viewed as literal supernatural beings or symbolic manifestations of psychological states, demons force us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. They represent the destructive potential that exists within every individual and society, the capacity for cruelty, the attraction to forbidden knowledge, the willingness to sacrifice others for personal gain, and the tendency toward self-destruction that seems to be hardwired into human consciousness. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of demonic lore is not the supernatural powers attributed to these entities, but their intimate knowledge of human weaknesses. Demons in every tradition are described as master psychologists who understand exactly how to exploit individual vulnerabilities. They don't typically use brute force to achieve their goals. Instead, they work through manipulation, deception, and the careful exploitation of human desires and fears. This suggests that the real danger of demons, whether literal or metaphorical, lies not in their supernatural abilities, but in their capacity to reveal and exploit the darkness that already exists within human hearts. The enduring power of demonic imagery in human culture suggests that these entities represent something essential about the human condition. Our awareness of our own capacity for evil, our fear of losing control over our actions and desires, and our recognition that destructive forces exist both within ourselves and in the world around us. Demons serve as warnings about the consequences of unchecked ambition, uncontrolled desire, and the pursuit of power without wisdom. They remind us that every human being contains the potential for both creation and destruction, and that the choice between these paths must be made consciously and repeatedly throughout life. Demonology in Abrahamic religions ultimately serves as a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears and shadows. Throughout history, these entities have functioned as warnings, symbols of temptation and chaos, and personifications of the darkest forces in existence. But beyond legends, pacts, and possessions, these stories force us to confront unsettling questions about the nature of evil and our own capacity for moral failure. The fear of the unknown, of hidden power, and of inexplicable forces remains constant in human experience, and demons provide a framework for understanding and discussing these fears. The journey into darkness reveals as much about the seekers as it does about what they find. Whether demons exist as literal supernatural entities or as symbolic representations of human psychological states, they challenge us to examine our own moral choices and to recognize the potential for both good and evil that exists within every human soul. In the end, the most important question isn't whether demons are real. It's whether we have the courage and wisdom to confront the shadows they represent, both in the world around us and within ourselves. The abyss gazes also into those who dare to look into it, and in that mutual gaze we discover truths about human nature that are both terrifying and essential for our spiritual and psychological development.